Hi, my name's Laura Berg, and today joining me I have Laurel Crossley, who is a parent educator and family coach. And we are talking about young children's anxiety and worry that they're experiencing nowadays. So thank you for joining us, Laurel.
Thank you for having me.
I have to say, I when we first started talking about this, I was sort of amazed because it wasn't something that we really heard about when we were kids. But it's really been mentioned in the news quite a bit lately, where kids are experiencing this sort of anxiety and worry. And why do you find that is now?
Well, I think there's a bunch of things that have happened. One thing is we now diagnose for everything. We have labels for everything, and when we were children, we didn't have those labels. Well, we were given labels like, "Oh, she's really painfully shy, really
Yeah,
quiet." She worries a lot and stuff like that. But we didn't have the official diagnoses that we have today, and so I think that's one of the reasons. And our media channels have changed. So now we talk about it with everyone, you
right.
know. And so when we have Facebook, we have Twitter, and I've been watching the Twitter and Facebook streams explode with, my kids got this type of anxiety. I actually belong to two groups on Facebook that it's children who've been diagnosed, parents of children who've been diagnosed with anxiety. So, we have a lot more access to knowledge and to get the diagnoses of our children. And then we have to look at the parents. And I don't know about you, but I'm inclined to be a workaholic. I
Yeah,
have my own business.
yep.
My father owned his own business, so I was modeled to at a very young age. Here's what here's how you behave as an entrepreneur. You're always on, you're always selling, you're always working. We have technology, if we aren't self-employed, that is given to us by our workplace, so
Yeah.
we are connected 24/7, 365. So we have excessive worry and anxiety, and we are absolutely modeling and influencing our own children. So there's just three examples of how things have shifted and changed and why our children might be experiencing that.
Right. I find that I experience guilt over that, actually, what you're
Oh,
talking about.
yeah,
Because I remember one day I was really stressed out, but because I work from home most of the time, my home and my work life are sort of, there's blur. It's not a fine line where I leave the office. And I remember I was very stressed out and I was very short with my kids. And I thought, oh, I just feel awful that I was snappy with them, and it seemed to cause my daughter some stress that I was stressed, and it was almost like she was trying to sort of overcompensate her behavior to make my life easier, but I was putting
right.
my stress on her, and it was such a really guilty mummy moment.
Oh,
Feeling
absolutely.
bad.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I want to ask you too, is this time of year, the back to school time of year, I can imagine is extremely stressful, and sort of your kids are anxious. I know my kids were anxious, but it's a sort of momentary anxiety that they experience until they settle in. So how do you know the difference between sort of a momentary anxiety and something that's going to last for a while that you need to really focus on? Or is there a difference? Are they the same thing, and do you kind of deal with them the same way?
So, yes, this time of year is especially difficult. Our schools are fraught with, I call it the crazium. Not the gymnasium, it's the crazium, that place where it's always crazy. And
Right.
schools are fraught with craziness because everybody's sort of in that high anxiety kind of time zone. The teachers are transitioning back to school, the students are transitioning back to school, you're transitioning to a new classroom, a new teacher, new kids in your class. Anytime you have periods of transition, no matter what the life situation, you are going to experience those butterflies, nerves, because it's something new. It's something not known. So yes, school is a huge, huge time. My coaching practice goes through the roof at this time of year because everything's affected by kids going back to school. And the teacher can't support everybody. She's
Right.
got 25, 20, 30 kids in her class. She can't or he can't spend one-on-one time supporting these children. So as a parent, it's really important that you understand or observe your child. You become an observer of your child so you know what those, I'll put it in brackets, symptoms of stress and anxiety and worry are. And there are lots of them. But only you know what's best for your child.
Right.
Only you as the parents know what's best for your child. So I always tell parents it's kind of that balance of being an advocate for your child in helping them really be able to express what it is they need. And that's the other thing. So many times we are prescriptive in how we deal with our children that are struggling with anxiety. Don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, no, you don't need to worry about that. Instead of, saying, how can I help you? And it's amazing when you flip it around, they'll give you answers. Sometimes they'll say, I don't know. And other times they'll say, well, I don't want to sit next to Sally on the bus because she smells funny. For some kids, smells really exacerbate stress and anxiety. Yeah. I'm a smelly person. Yeah. No, that doesn't come out right.
Are you now? So you're saying to sort of, instead of tell your child what they need to do, or it's okay, everything's fine, don't worry, engage them in conversation and ask them, okay, that makes sense.
I mean, it's so simple.
Yeah.
And so many times, because we're in a hurry and we're stressed out as parents, we're saying, okay, do this, do this, do this, instead of involving them in the process.
Right.
Because stress and worry and anxiety is founded in lack or feelings of lack of control.
Right.
So if the more in control and empowered a child feels, the less likely they'll be stressed out or worried or anxious.
Right. I think parents have a tendency of giving their child solutions or what they feel it is, or saying, don't worry, you'll be fine in a week, because we know, but it doesn't mean that they know, or that they can look a week down the road and have that thought process and go, okay, I will be fine in a week. So they're working through it, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing to be that is so important is your worries and anxieties are not necessarily those of your children.
Right.
And what happens is, if you're a former worrier and a former anxious person and someone who freaks out a little bit, I'm raising my hand.
Yeah, me too.
Right? And so we think, because we experienced in a particular situation that worry and anxiety, that our children are going to have that and experience it. What we must do is separate I call it separate, compartmentalize. Our worries, thoughts, and fears over here, those are ours. Our children have different life experiences and have grown up in a very different type of lifestyle. So we must be cognizant of what their worries are and focus on those.
That's actually a really good tip, because I find that a lot of my reaction to the situation that my children are in, or the feelings that they're having, I'm throwing myself back to when I was their age and I was feeling that way and I was, so emotional or whatever. And that's a really good tip. Actually, I'm gonna apply that to my life. Okay, so tell me, what are some of the signs and symptoms that parents can look for that will sort of trigger this? Yes, my child is feeling anxious.
There are a myriad of them. So one of the things so I'm just going to name them. I like to identify sort of the mind, the body, and the spirit. And we have those three elements of self. So if we look at the physical part, for kids who struggle, you'll find that they're not sleeping, they're not eating, or they're overeating. Because what happens in an anxious moment is our adrenaline kicks in. And what happens is we either consume to allow us to run from the dinosaur,
right,
or we shut off and we purge everything. We throw up, we have diarrhea, we don't eat, because we are knowing that we have to take off from the dinosaur. So it's really it's deeply instilled in our DNA to have this response. And it's a positive and negative. So those are the three things physically. So you may have diarrhea, you may have vomiting, you may have nausea, you can't sleep, you'll see that they don't want to go to school, headache is a big one. And, most often, because kids normally don't have headaches. So when they do have headaches, I
Right.
tell parents to take their kids to the dentist to make sure they're not grinding their teeth, another symptom of anxiety or stress,
Right.
or to go get a massage to relax all the tension that's in their sort of this region. And so those are a few of the symptoms. Crying, not wanting to go to events because it's overwhelming for them. So if they have to go to a birthday party, or they have to go to school, or I had a kid who tantrumed every time I took him to school. He still hates it.
What can parents do, like if they don't feel like they're equipped with really handling their child's anxiety? Is there something that they could do outside of just the
Well,
home?
I think what I would recommend is they take their child to just get a full-blown checkup, just to make sure that there's nothing physiologically going on with them. So go to the doctor, make sure there's nothing physiologically wrong with the child, and talk to your pediatrician about that. Ask questions, without the child.
Right.
Please don't have the child in the room. So once they have the physical, just make it as a physical. Leave them at home, go in, set up a separate appointment, and talk to your family physician or your pediatrician about, is this something I need to be concerned about? Seek out, I always love Twitter and Facebook. So start putting questions out there to other parents.
Mm-hmm.
I find that's a great resource and a great community
really
support
is.
for parents. And
Yeah.
most of my clients come through there because they've said something. I've said, how can I help? And then we've had a discussion offline. It's amazing what's out there.
Well, and to not feel that your child is the only one going through
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that with my kids too. Even when it came time to sleeping, my kids were the worst sleepers, and I just thought I felt like a failure because I couldn't get them in this routine. And I remember going to a mom's group, and like 90% of the women were going through what I was going through. So reaching out and connecting with other parents is definitely a good tip.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a great resource, and I'm on everything.
Right.
Well,
why don't you take this time to tell me, what exactly do you do? What do you do for parents?
Well, I do lots of interesting things. I've actually developed a couple of programs for children that one is more, I'll say, preventative in nature, which is my Meditating Munchkins program. It's offered in Toronto. In real life, it's offered in real life. I'll explain what I mean by that. In real life, it's offered in Toronto, Burlington, and Oakville. And then I do an online version of it through Skype. And basically, it's teaching children the fundamentals of meditation for kids aged 3 to 8. So I call it preventative because it's before it's usually been diagnosed as anxiety. My background is in child studies and child development, so that's kind of what I bring to the table, is more the developmental, how it's impacting developmentally.
Right.
And then I do one-on-one work with kids as well, and parents who are struggling with, I don't know how to deal with the anxiety. I've really specialized in anxiety, and I basically teach kids how to calm their brain.
Yeah. I think we talked about a lot of the things. It's really good, I think, that just for parents to know that it's totally, well, I'm going to say normal for kids to experience this.
Yes.
And they're not alone if they find that their children are doing that. And the whole, I never thought to get my kids to meditate necessarily, but I know with my son, he gets very upset and then has a hard time calming down. And I try and get him to count to 10 before he, hits his sister or something. And I guess that's a form of calming the mind, and
absolutely
doing the meditation is sort of the next step.
It's taking them, it's stopping.
Right.
So the first thing, you said something critical that I want to share with parents, and that is the situation. If your children know the situation before going into it that triggers those worries or anxieties, you can actually pre-meditate. Not premeditated, but premeditate before the situation arises. So if your child can identify the situations and parents know it, you can actually do a preventative type of meditation before they go into it. So they're not actually in that panic state or in that excessive worry state before the situation. So it's really important that parents also know the situations that exacerbate those worries, fears, and anxieties.
Right. which goes back to your initial point of asking your children what is wrong or what you can do or what they need. I think
That's
that's
right.
a really good start. Um, you gave a lot of really great information today. I
Thank
really
you.
thank you for sharing this. And really, I think we need to talk about it. It was sort of like when Oprah first started talking about postpartum depression in women, and now women can talk about it. It's not a bad thing. I mean, it's a bad thing to go through, but it's not a thing that we should feel ashamed of or embarrassed of. And I think it's the same thing with this. Is our
Yeah.
kids anxious? It's not something that we should be ashamed of or embarrassed of. It happens. So how do we deal with it? And then, of course, you're giving them great skills as they enter into teens and adulthood and all of that. So it's
Hmm.
definitely a good start to look at our kids now and help them cope better with things.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
well, this
Absolutely.
is great. I'm going to put up your website
Perfect.
in the link below, and so I would recommend that parents, if you're interested in, if you want help or suggestions, Laurel is extremely friendly
Silly.
and silly, and is happy to help. I mean, send her an email. I'm sure that if she can't help, you could sort of certainly recommend where they go or what steps to take.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
don't
There's a
hesitate to
posse of
contact her.
peeps. Posse of peeps. Thank you,
Again, I just
Laura.
want to thank you so much for taking the time to share all of this with us, and have a great day, Laurel.
Thank you.
Okay, bye for now.